Welcome back to my movie review for Hugo. And this time I'm gonna talk about the plot and the characters. What is the plot of this movie? Yes. First of all, it's a very a very exciting plot. It's about Hugo Capri. He's a 12-year-old boy, and the time the time this t- the time this movie starts out taking place in is 1931, and here he lives with his father, a master clockmaker in Paris. And Hugo's father, takes him to see films, and the father particularly loves the film of George Meiles, the man that is honored in this movie. And Hugo's father dies in a museum fire, and Hugo is taken care of by his uncle, an alcoholic watchmaker, who is responsible for maintaining the clocks in the railway station, Gare Montparnasse. His uncle teaches him to take care of the clocks and then just disappears. It is later discovered that he has drowned. Hugo lives between the walls of the station, maintaining the clocks, stealing food, and working on his father's most ambitious project, repairing a broken automation. A mechanical man who is supposed to write with a pen. Convinced the automation contains a message from his father, Hugo goes to desperate lengths to fix it. He steals mechanical parts to repair the automation, but he is caught by a toy store owner, George Meiles. Again, the same guy who is honored in this movie, who takes Hugo's notebook from him with notes and drawings for fixing the automation. To recover the notebook, Hugo follows Meiles to his house and meets Isabella, an orphan close to his age, and George's granddaughter. She promises to help. The next day, Meiles gives some ashes to Hugo, referring to him as the notebook's remains, but Isabel informs him that the notebook was not burned. Finally, Meiles agrees that Hugo may earn the notebook back by working for him until he pays for all the things he stole from the shop. Hugo works at the toy shop, and in his time off manages to fix the automation, but is still missing one part, a heart-shaped key. A George Meiles drawing similar to the one drawn by the Ottoman in this film. It's shaped like a moon. You know, George Meiles has in one of his movies a moon that is looking down on Earth with the help of a telescope or something. Hugo introduces Isabella to the movies, which her grandfather has never let her see. While she introduces Hugo to a bookstore whose owner initially mistrusts Hugo. Isabel turns out to have the key to the automation. When they use the key to activate the automation, it produces a drawing of of a film scene. Hugo remembers it in the film his father always talked about as the first film he ever saw. The movie is called Voyage on the Moon. Voyage to the Moon, by the way. They discover that the drawing made by the automaton is signed with the name of Isabel's godfather. Gee, how exciting. And take it to her home for explanation. Hugo shows George's wife Jean, which was one of George Meiles' actresses in the movies he made, and also his wife. But they show her the picture, but she says not to tell anything to anyone, and makes them hide in the room when George comes home. While hiding, Isabella and Hugo find a secret cabinet and accidentally release pictures and screenboards of George's creations. Just as George and Jean enter the room, George is deeply upset and throws Hugo out, feeling betrayed. Hugo and Isabel find a book on the history of films and are surprised that the author, Reen Tabot, refers to Meiles as having died in World War I. Tabot himself appears, and the children tell him that Meiles is alive. Tabot is a devoted Meiles, a devotee of Meiles films, owns a copy of Voyage of the Moon. Then Hugo convinces Tabot to go to George's home. That night, Hugo dreams of being run over by a train when trying to receive the heart key from the rails, a sequence that ends in a recreation of the Montparnasse train accident. When he wakes up, he hears a ticking sound and discovers it is coming from his own chest, which point he suddenly turns into the same form and shape as the automation, but then awakes for good. Hugo, Isabel, and Tabot go to George's home, and at first, Jean tells them to go before her husband wakes. However, Jean accepts their offer to show Voyage of the Moon when Tabot compliments her as one of the actresses in George's films. As they finish watching the film, George appears and explains how he came to make movies, invented the special effects, and how he lost faith and in films when World War I began. Yes, well, wars ruin everything, don't they? They make people lose faith and faith in fantasies and realize the harsh reality of this world. So yeah, war sucks. That's the bottom line. It just sucks. Because of that, this World War One, George Meiles was forced to sell his films to get money and opened a toy shop to survive. He also believes that the automaton he created was lost in the museum fire and nothing remains of his life's works. Hugo goes back to the station to get the automaton to surprise George, but he is cornered by the station inspector and his dog. Hugo escapes and runs to the top of the clock tower and hides by climbing out into the hands of the clock. Once the inspector is gone, he runs for the exit with the automaton, but he is trapped by the inspector and the automaton is thrown onto the railway tracks. Climbing onto the tracks, he is almost run over by an approaching train when the officer saves him and detains him as an orphan without a guardian. While Hugo pleads with the officer, George arrives and says Hugo is in his care. The officer lets him go. At the end of the movie, George gets a tribute ceremony to his movies, with Tabat announcing that over 80 films have been recovered and restored. George thanks Hugo for his actions and invites the audience to follow his dream. Well, that's the story. I know it's long, but yeah, that's the story. The cast is also good. We have Asa Butterfield as Hugo Cabret, Ben Kingsley as George Meiles, the shop owner and former filmmaker, and the same guy who is honored in this movie. Clark Grace Moretz as Isabel, George's granddaughter, and she is also playing Hit Girl in Kick-Ass. And we have Sacha Baron Cohen as Inspector Gustav, and thank God for the fact that there isn't any toilet humor made by him, like it was, like he did with Borat. I mean, that humor was just very, very disgusting. And then we have Ray Winstone as Claude Cabret, Hugo's uncle. The guy who drunk himself to death. Jude Law as Hugo's father, the clockmaker. And also known as Dr. Hudson in the Sherlock Holmes movies. And then we have Christopher Lee as Monsieur Labisse, the bookshop owner. And Helen McCrory as Mama Jean, George's wife. Michael Studberg as Renee Tabat, a film historian. Emily Mortimer as Lisette, the flower girl. Yes, there is one major plot in this movie, but there is also 3 little plots in this movie, and each of them is given a very good amount of time, so we get to know the characters, all of them. Emily Mortimer as Lisette, the flower girl. Also Inspector Gustav's love interest. Francis de la Tour as Madame Emile, the owner of the cafe. Richard Griffith as Monsieur Frick, the newspaper seller. And these two I was talking about, they also are in love with each other. Marco Aponte as a train engineer assistant. Emily Lair as Django Reinhardt, the guitarist. Ben Adult as Salvador Dali. Robert Gill as Jamie Joyce, and Kevin Eldon as policeman. Yeah, I know, that's a lot of people, but yeah. And the best part, all these characters are two-dimensional. Heck, even Inspector Gustav, who at first comes off as a complete a-hole. He is actually a man with a very sad soul. He has a heart, even though he has been an orphan himself as a child and never got adopted. He has a heart. He is just a very sad soul. I mean, he saves Hugo from getting run by the train in real life, so he's not really that cold of a person. He's just a very sad, unlucky man who ends up getting his true love to like him. And all of these characters are two-dimensional. Also, Hugo Capre, you think he's just a boy running around at the clocks, but he's actually a very sad person. He thought that the automaton could help him with his loneliness or something. And Isabel, George's granddaughter, she loves books, but all she really wants is experience a real adventure. For for George Meiles, he had lost his faith and spirit because of the war. Poor man. Bottom line, these characters are great and they're two-dimensional. And the plot is good too. So, yes, it's great to have this kind of a movie. See you in part 3.